The scanner beeped red at the checkpoint. Commander Eric Vance froze, his hand instinctively moving toward his sidearm. The refugee line stretched for kilometers behind the trembling figure in tattered gray robes, but every guard's attention locked onto the alien woman whose biosignature had just triggered every alarm in the Sol System defense grid. "Step aside," Eric ordered, his voice flat. The woman's hood fell back, revealing violet skin and eyes like molten gold. She didn't run, didn't speak, just stood there, swaying slightly, one hand clutched to her ribs where dark blood seeped through the fabric. His second-in-command's voice crackled in his earpiece. "Commander, that signature matches?" "I see it." Eric cut him off. The holographic display floating beside the scanner showed a biological match to the Zytherian royal database. Not just any royal, the Crown Princess Solara, who had declared humanity an enemy species 6 months ago when Earth refused to surrender its mining rights to the outer colonies. The princess took one step forward. Her legs buckled. Eric caught her before she hit the ground, his tactical training overriding every protocol screaming in his head. She weighed almost nothing, her skin burned with fever through the thin robe. Around them, guards raised weapons, refugees scrambled backward, and somewhere an alert siren began its wail. "Medical emergency," Eric barked into his comm. "Quarantine Bay 7. Now." "Sir, regulation state. Now, Martinez. Coraines. Sir, regulation state. Sir, regulation state. Now, Martinez." He carried her through 3 security doors while his mind raced through the implications. A Zetherian princess bleeding and alone at a human refugee station on the edge of contested space. Either an elaborate trap or a disaster waiting to explode. Either way, his career ended the moment he decided not to put a plasma bolt through her skull. The medical bay's sterile lights made her skin look even more alien. Eric set her on the examination table as Dr. Sarah Chen burst through the door, took one look at their patient, and went pale. I know what it is," Eric said. "Can you save her?" Sarah's hands were already moving, scanner in one hand, injector in the other. "She's been poisoned. Something I've never seen before. Zytherian bioweapon, maybe? She has hours at best." The princess's eyes opened, fixed on Eric's face. When she spoke, her voice carried the musical lilt of her species, but the words came out in perfect, unaccented English. "My mother will come for me." She coughed, and more of that dark blood flecked her lips. "You should kill me now." "Save yourselves." Eric pulled up a chair and sat down at eye level with her. Behind him, Sarah worked frantically, pumping antitoxins and stabilizers into the princess's bloodstream. "Why are you here?" I ran. The princess closed her eyes. "From the palace, from the war, from everything I was supposed to be." She laughed, a bitter sound. "My mother would rather see me dead than disgraced. You're telling me the Zytherian Empress poisoned her own daughter?" Solara's hand moved to her ribs again, and Eric saw the wound there wasn't from a blade. It was a burn pattern, precise and deliberate. "Punishment, Mark. I refused to lead the fleet against your colonies. Said humans deserve to be heard, not exterminated. That made me a traitor." Sarah caught Eric's eye and shook her head slightly. Whatever she was doing wasn't enough. Eric stood, walked to the supply cabinet, and pulled out his emergency rations. Standard issue protein bar, water pouch, and a self-heating meal pack his daughter had sent from Earth last week. Chicken soup, her note had said, because even space commanders needed comfort food. He tore open the meal pack, waited for it to heat, then spooned some of the soup into a cup. Solara watched him with confusion as he held it to her lips. "What are you doing?" "Something my daughter taught me," Eric said. "You never let someone face death on an empty stomach. Doesn't matter who they are. Doesn't matter what they've done. You feed them.
You give them dignity. That's what makes us human."
The princess sipped the soup. Tears formed in those golden eyes. "You know my mother's fleet is probably 3 hours behind me when she finds me here. With you, she'll glass this entire station. Thousands will die. Then I guess we have 3 hours to figure out a better ending." Eric sat back down. "Tell me about your mother. Tell me what she wants. And tell me why a princess who could have anything chose to run to a human refugee station instead of anywhere else in the galaxy." Solara drank more soup, and something in her expression shifted. The fear remained, but underneath it, Eric saw a flicker of something else. Hope, maybe. Or just the desperate relief of finding someone who didn't treat her like a political bargaining chip. "I came here because my intelligence reports said Commander Eric Vance once negotiated peace between 3 hostile species using nothing but patience and food." She managed a weak smile. I gambled that the man who ended the Tarvian conflict by sharing his rations with an enemy soldier might do the same for me. The scanner beside her bed began beeping more urgently. Sarah cursed under her breath, adjusting medications. Eric set down the cup and met the princess's eyes. Then let's make sure that gamble pays off. Sir, long-range sensors just picked up a Zytherian battle fleet. They're not bothering with stealth. The flagship is broadcasting on all frequencies. The Empress herself is demanding we surrender her daughter within 1 hour, or she'll consider it an act of war. The princess grabbed Eric's wrist with surprising strength. Please, don't let her take me back. I'd rather die here, among people who showed me kindness, than live as her puppet. Eric looked at the dying alien princess, at the doctor fighting to save her, at the lieutenant waiting for orders that would determine the fate of thousands. He thought about his daughter's soup, about the simple act of sharing a meal, and about how the smallest gestures sometimes carried the weight of worlds. Martinez, open a channel to the Empress's flagship. Sir? You heard me. And get me every diplomat, mediator, and peacekeeping officer on this station. If the Zytherian Empress wants her daughter, she's going to have to negotiate like everyone else. Commander, that's an order. Eric turned back to Solera. You didn't gamble on the wrong human, Princess. But I need you to do something for me. Anything. Live. Just keep fighting long enough to see if this crazy plan works. The medical monitors shrieked their warnings. Sarah's hands moved faster, and somewhere in the vast dark of space, an Empress's fury bore down on them like a collapsing star. Eric picked up the comm unit, his finger hovering over the transmit button. In his other hand, he still held the cup of soup, its warmth a small defiance against the cold equations of war. This would either be remembered as humanity's finest hour or its final mistake. He pressed the button. The view screen crackled to life, and Empress Cathara's face filled the display. She was magnificent and terrifying, her violet skin marked with silver patterns that denoted royal lineage, her golden eyes burning with cold rage. Behind her, the bridge of the Imperial flagship stretched into shadows filled with warriors. I am Commander Eric Vance of the Soul Defense Forces. I'm calling to discuss. You have my daughter. The Empress's voice could have frozen stars. You have 1 human hour to place her in an escape pod alive and unharmed, or I will reduce your station to atoms. There is no discussion. There is no negotiation. There is only compliance or death. Eric kept his voice steady. Your Highness, your daughter is critically injured. She's currently in our medical bay receiving treatment for what appears to be Zytherian origin poison. If we put her in an escape pod right now, she'll be dead before she reaches your ship. Something flickered across the Empress's face. Not concern. Eric had seen enough poker faces to know better, but calculation. Then she is already dead to me. A traitor's fate is sealed regardless. Is that what you'll tell your people? That the Crown Princess died because you were too proud to accept help from humans? Eric leaned forward. Or maybe there's another story here, one where an Empress's wisdom led to something better than more bloodshed. You dare lecture me on wisdom? Your species has existed for a cosmic blink. My lineage spans millennia. Then you've had millennia to learn that some problems can't be solved with firepower. Eric gestured to someone off screen. Sarah wheeled Solera's medical bed into view of the camera. The princess looked barely conscious, her breathing shallow. The Empress's expression didn't change, but her hand tightened on her throne's armrest. She came to us because she believed in peace, Eric continued. She believed humans and Zytherians could find common ground. She was poisoned for that belief. By her own people, with your knowledge. And now she's here, dying, while you decide whether your pride is worth your daughter's life. My daughter chose her path when she betrayed her species. She chose mercy over genocide. If that's betrayal in your culture, maybe the problem isn't with her. The Empress rose from her throne. Every guard on the station tensed. You have 30 minutes, Commander. After that, my weapons are charged and your shields won't matter. Sarah looked up from Solara's bedside, her expression grave. The antitoxin isn't working. Whatever they used on her is breaking down faster than I can counteract it. I need the original compound to synthesize a proper cure. Lieutenant Martinez stepped closer. Commander, the evacuation shuttles are ready. We can get most of the refugees off station before the Empress opens fire, but it'll be chaos. We'll lose hundreds in the panic alone. Eric stared at the dark view screen. Behind him, Solara stirred on the medical bed. Commander. Her voice was barely a whisper. My mother keeps the Imperial poison reserves in the flagship's bio-vault. The antidote exists. She simply chose not to bring it. Can you access the vault remotely? I could, if I had my royal codes, but they changed them after I fled. She coughed, trembling. I'm sorry. I've doomed you all for nothing. 28 minutes until the Empress made good on her threat. Thousands of lives hanging on a choice between surrender and annihilation. And one dying princess who'd gambled everything on human compassion. He pulled out his personal comm and dialed a channel he rarely used. His daughter answered on the second ring. Dad? Is everything okay? Mira, I need you to do something for me. Remember that xenolinguistics program you've been developing? The one that can extrapolate cultural communication patterns? The one the military said was impractical? Yeah, I remember. I need you to analyze everything we know about Zytherian royal protocols. Find me a cultural pressure point. Something that would force the Empress to negotiate in good faith. Dad, what's going on? I'm trying to save your old man from making the history books for all the wrong reasons. Can you do it? I'll need access to the diplomatic archives, but give me 20 minutes. Eric closed the channel and turned to find Dr. Chen staring at him. You have a plan? I have the beginning of one. He looked at Solara. Princess, I need you to tell me everything about Zytherian honor codes, specifically anything related to debts, obligations, or cultural taboos your mother can't ignore. Solara's eyes focused with effort. There is one custom, ancient, from before the Empire, the Cathara, the life debt. If someone saves your life at great personal risk, the debt must be honored. It's considered sacred. Even my mother couldn't refuse it without losing legitimacy with the traditionalist faction. And if someone saved the life of a royal, for 3 generations. Solara managed a weak smile. But it only applies if the act is witnessed and acknowledged. And the debt holder must demand specific terms within 1 solar cycle, or the obligation dissolves. Mare's voice came through, excited and breathless. Dad, I found something. The Empress isn't just furious about the betrayal. She's in the middle of a succession crisis. Solara was the compromise candidate between 2 factions that hate each other. If Solara dies, the Empire could splinter into civil war. Your princess is worth more alive than dead, but the Empress can't be seen as weak by retrieving her from humans. Martinez, open a channel to the flagship again, and get me every camera on the station pointed at the medical bay. Sir, the Empress wants a show. Let's give her one she can't ignore. The view screen flickered back to life. The Empress's face appeared, cold and expectant. Your time is nearly expired, Commander. I'm not calling to surrender, Your Highness. I'm calling to invoke the Cathara, the life debt, in front of witnesses across 3 species and broadcast on every channel in this sector. Behind her, Eric could see Zytherian advisors leaning forward, murmuring urgently, You cannot invoke what you do not understand, human. I understand enough. Your daughter came to us poisoned and dying. We saved her life, knowing it would bring your wrath. We risked thousands of lives for hers. That's the definition of great personal risk, isn't it? Eric stepped aside so the cameras could show Solara clearly, now sitting up slightly as Sarah's latest treatment seemed to finally take effect. And we have witnesses. Thousands of them. Humans, Tarvians, Kalashi, and others. All watching right now. Even if I acknowledged such a debt, what could you possibly demand that would satisfy it? Peace. Real peace. Not just a ceasefire or a treaty. I want a cultural exchange. Human doctors training with Zytherian healers, Zytherian engineers working alongside human builders. Your daughter serving as the bridge between our species, using her position to show both sides that cooperation benefits everyone. You ask for the impossible. I'm asking for what your daughter already tried to do. The difference is, now you can't call it treason. You can call it honoring a life debt. The traditionalists can't challenge that, and the other factions can't risk civil war over refusing an ancient obligation. The Empress stood, her full height imposing even through the view screen. You presume much, Commander. I'm just a soldier who shared his soup with someone who needed it. Everything else is on you. Silence stretched across the void between the flagship and the station. Eric could hear his own heartbeat, could feel the weight of every life depending on the next word spoken. The Empress turned to someone off-screen and spoke in rapid Zytherian. The response was longer, more heated. She raised one hand and silence fell immediately. When she looked back at Eric, something had shifted in her golden eyes. My advisors tell me that to refuse a properly invoked Cathara would cost me the support of the Traditionalist Council. They also tell me that your broadcast has reached 17 systems and counting. You have engineered a situation where I have no choice but to negotiate. Not engineered, Your Highness. Just hopeful. Hope is a dangerous thing, Commander. The Empress sat back down on her throne. Very well. I acknowledge the life debt. But understand this. Peace between our species will not be easy. There are wounds that run deeper than you know. Interests that conflict beyond simple misunderstanding. I know. That's why we need someone who understands both sides. Eric gestured to Solara. Your daughter can be that bridge, if you let her. Solara pushed herself more upright despite Sarah's protests. Mother, I know I disappointed you. I know I broke protocol and tradition. But I also know this war will destroy us both. Humanity isn't weak. They're resourceful, stubborn, and more dangerous than you believe. And we're not the unstoppable force you think we are. This conflict ends with mutual destruction or mutual respect. I chose respect. The Empress studied her daughter for a long moment. You look terrible. I've been poisoned, Mother. It's not my best moment. Something that might have been the ghost of a smile touched the Empress's face. The antidote will be delivered within the hour. Along with diplomatic envoys to begin negotiations for the cultural exchange the Commander demands. She paused. But Solara, if you choose this path, you cannot return home until the peace is established. You will serve as ambassador to humanity.
You will live among them.
And you will report directly to me on whether they are truly worthy of trust. I understand. Do you? Because if this fails, if the humans prove treacherous or you prove incompetent, there will be no third chances. The war will resume, and I will not show mercy again. Solara met her mother's gaze steadily. Then, I'll make sure it doesn't fail. The Empress nodded once, a gesture that somehow carried the weight of changing history. Commander Vance, you have bought yourself peace, but you have also bought responsibility. My daughter's life, and the future of our species' relationship, now rest partially in your hands. I suggest you don't waste this opportunity. I'll do my best, Your Highness. See that you do. The Empress glanced at something off-screen. The antidote transport is launching now. My medical staff will coordinate with yours to ensure Solara's full recovery. After that, she paused, and for just a moment, the iron controls slipped enough to show the mother beneath the monarch. After that, keep her safe, Commander. Whatever else she may be, she is still my daughter. Eric let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Around him, the medical bay erupted in controlled chaos as the staff prepared to receive the Zytherian medical transport. Martinez was already coordinating with the diplomatic corps. Sarah was arguing with someone over comm about medical protocols. And Solara was crying quietly, tears of relief streaming down her violet face. Eric handed her the last of his daughter's soup, now cold but still there.
You did it, Solara whispered. You actually did it.
We did it. You're the one who ran toward hope instead of accepting despair. Eric smiled. Besides, I just followed the lesson my daughter taught me. Sometimes the greatest victories come from the smallest acts of kindness. A cup of soup saved 2 species from war. Well, soup and some very aggressive negotiation tactics. Eric pulled up a chair beside her bed. But yeah, essentially soup. Your daughter sounds wise. She's brilliant, stubborn, idealistic, and occasionally infuriating. You'll like her. Eric paused. Fair warning, though, if you're going to be humanity's bridge to the Zytherian Empire, you're about to learn that humans are messy, contradictory, and rarely make sense. We're nothing like the diplomatic reports probably told you. I've had enough of things making sense. Solara closed her eyes, exhaustion finally claiming her. Wake me when the antidote arrives. And, Commander? Thank you. For seeing me as a person instead of a political problem. That's what we do. Or try to, anyway. Eric stood and walked to the viewport, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, a Zytherian medical transport was racing toward them. Beyond that, an empire was beginning to reconsider everything it thought it knew about humanity. And across human space, a story was spreading about a commander who'd gambled everything on compassion and somehow won. His calm chimed. Mira's voice, excited and proud. Dad, you're all over the news feeds. They're calling it the soup diplomacy incident. Eric groaned. Tell me you're joking. Nope. It's trending across 12 systems. Someone even started a petition to make soup sharing an official first contact protocol. She paused. I'm proud of you, Dad. You did what you always do. You saw a person who needed help, and you helped them. The politics was just what happened after. Your soup helped too. Then, I guess we saved the galaxy together. Pretty good for a Wednesday. Eric smiled, thinking about how strange and wonderful the universe could be. How a simple meal shared with a stranger could cascade into something that changed the fate of billions. How hope, when given the smallest chance, could grow into something powerful enough to move empires. The medical transport arrived 37 minutes later. Zytherian doctors, professional and precise, administered the antidote while Sarah watched with fascination, already asking questions about the compound structure. Solara's recovery was almost immediate, color returning to her skin, strength flowing back into her limbs. Within hours, diplomatic delegations from both species began arriving at the station. Eric found himself at the center of a whirlwind of negotiations, cultural exchanges, and carefully worded treaties. It was exhausting, complicated, and nothing like the simple act that had started it all. But every time he felt overwhelmed, he remembered Solara's face when he'd offered her that first spoonful of soup. The shock that anyone would show her kindness when they had every reason to see her as an enemy. The hope that sparked in her eyes when she realized not all bridges between species were burned. 3 months later, Eric stood at the dedication ceremony for the first joint human-Zytherian research facility. Solara stood beside him, now fully recovered and serving as the official ambassador. She wore clothes that blended both cultures, spoke with confidence that commanded respect from both species, and had become, against all odds, one of Eric's closest friends. Nervous? She asked quietly as the speeches droned on. Terrified? You? Absolutely. She smiled. But it's good terror. The kind that means something important is happening. Your mother arrived this morning, you know. She wanted it kept quiet, but she's in the VIP section. Solara's eyes widened. She's here? Actually here? She told me she wanted to see what her daughter had built. And to thank the human who... Eric paused, grinning. Her exact words were, to thank the stubborn fool who proved me wrong about humanity's capacity for wisdom. That's practically a love letter in her diplomatic vocabulary. They watched as human and Zytherian scientists mingled below, sharing data and theories with an enthusiasm that transcended language barriers. In the crowd, Eric spotted his daughter, deep in conversation with a Zytherian linguist about communication patterns. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I'd followed protocol that day? Eric asked. If I'd just detained you, or worse? Solara was quiet for a moment. I think about it constantly. We were one decision away from a war that would have devastated both our species. One cup of soup away from mutual annihilation. She turned to look at him. That should be terrifying, but instead it gives me hope. If one small act of kindness can prevent a war, imagine what deliberate, sustained compassion could accomplish. Revolution? A better galaxy? A better galaxy? The ceremony concluded with both national anthems playing together, a sound that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. As the crowd dispersed, the Empress herself approached. She looked just as imposing in person, but there was something softer in her eyes when she looked at her daughter. You've done well, Solara. Both of you have. She turned to Eric. Commander, I find myself in the unusual position of owing gratitude to a human. It is, uncomfortable. I'll try not to enjoy it too much, Your Highness. See that you don't. She almost smiled. My advisors tell me this peace will last. That the economic and cultural benefits outweigh the old grudges. I hope they're correct. Me too. The Empress placed one hand on Solara's shoulder. I was wrong about you.
About what strength means.
I thought refusing to bend meant power. You showed me that bending toward justice is the greater courage. She looked at Eric. Both of you did. Then, in a gesture that made every guard in the room tense, the Empress of the Zytherian Empire bowed slightly to a human commander. Thank you, Eric Vance, for saving my daughter, for saving my empire from itself, and for teaching an old ruler that there are still new lessons to learn. Thank you for being willing to learn them, Your Highness. As the Empress departed, surrounded by her security detail, Solara let out a shaky breath. I never thought I'd see that. Never in 1,000 years. People surprise you. Even empresses. Solara linked her arm through Eric's in a gesture that had become natural over the months of friendship. Come on. There's a reception with too much food and too many speeches, but I heard they're serving soup in your honor. Of course they are. They walked together through the facility, past laboratories where yesterday's enemies worked as today's colleagues, past conference rooms where treaties were being refined and expanded, past windows showing stars that belonged to both their peoples now. The galaxy hadn't changed overnight. There were still hardliners on both sides who opposed the peace, still conflicts over resources and territory that would take years to resolve, still moments when old hatreds threatened to reignite old wars. But there was also this. A human commander and an alien princess walking side by side, proof that the distance between species was smaller than anyone had believed. That a simple act, sharing a meal with someone who needed it, could ripple outward until it touched worlds. Eric thought about all the small moments that had led here, his daughter's care package, the decision to see a person instead of a threat, the gamble that compassion could be stronger than fear, and he thought about all the small moments still to come. The children of both species who would grow up knowing the other as partners instead of enemies, the discoveries that would be made together, the future that was now possible, because someone had chosen kindness when hate would have been easier. In the reception hall, someone handed him a ceremonial cup of soup. It was fancy, garnished with exotic ingredients from 3 different star systems, nothing like the simple military rations he'd shared with Solara that first day, but the meaning was the same. Eric raised the cup in a toast. To soup. And to the strangers who become friends when we give them the chance. Solara raised her own cup, her golden eyes bright with emotion. To hope. And to the humans, stubborn enough to demand it, even when the universe says otherwise. Around them, humans and Zytharians raised their cups together, a sight that would have been impossible just months before. A sound like the future being born. And somewhere in space, stars continued their ancient dance, unchanged by the small dramas of those who looked up at them. But on a station at the edge of everything, in a moment that would echo through history, 2 species took the first real steps toward understanding. All because one man had shared his meal with a lost stranger. All because kindness, when given freely, could change everything. 2 halves.